Mark Rogers TV, we are through 11 picks of the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft. Let's start from the top. And the Houston Texans select, to no surprise of anyone, South Carolina defensive end Jadeveon Clowney. I would have tried to trade down, maybe the Texans did, but it seemed to have been the pick that they were wanting to make over the last few weeks as they sorted through Khalil Mack, Johnny Manziel, Sammy Watkins, and others with the number one selection. Jadeveon Clowney is the number one athlete in this draft. He is sometimes the number one football player when he decides to strap it up and play football for 4 quarters. Jadeveon Clowney with just 3.5 sacks. We understand that he was double teamed with a very strong defensive end on the other side, Chaz Sutton of South Carolina, who had a monster year, much of which was due to Clowney getting the attention on the other side, double teams and also chip blocks, but also understand that there are great football players in college football who get double teamed and are able to produce more than 3.5 sacks. And that's what Jadeveon Clowney produced in 2013 after a monstrous sophomore season in which he had like 24 tackles for loss and 13 sacks, and then projected to get 20 to 21 sacks in the SEC as a junior, and he failed to do so. But Jadeveon Clowney, if he lives up to expectations, of course, the no-brainer for the Houston Texans at number 1 overall. The St. Louis Rams selected number 2, and this one was a no-brainer as well. Just about everybody slotted in Greg Robinson, the big left tackle out of Auburn, as the SEC comes up with the 2 top players out of the 2014 draft. Greg Robinson, maybe not projected by scouts to be that NFL Hall of Famer, that Pro Football Hall of Famer down the road. That remains to be seen. Of course, Greg Robinson is an exceptional athlete who got the job done as a road grader run blocker. Some of the comments of the detractors of Greg Robinson leading into this draft is that he does not use his hands very well. He was caught for several holding calls that will be amplified in the NFL. So some of the plays that he made that were not holding calls at the collegiate level will be called holding calls according to officials of the National Football League and scouts of the NFL as well. So Greg Robinson has some polishing to do as he missed out on his last 2 collegiate seasons at Auburn and now goes to the St. Louis Rams, but obviously an exceptional talent when nobody bats an eye at Greg Robinson being selected number 2 by St. Louis out of Auburn. At number 3, you've got this was most likely the first real intrigue of the night with Blake Bortles going to Jacksonville at number 3. The Jacksonville Jaguars also were looking at Khalil Mack out of Buffalo and also Sammy Watkins, the top wide receiver out of Clemson. But they go with what could be a franchise quarterback in Blake Bortles. The last time Jacksonville selected a first-round quarterback was, of course, Blaine Gabbert out of Missouri, and he didn't pan out at all. They currently have Chad Henne at quarterback in Jacksonville, but they go with Blake Bortles. My take on Blake Bortles is that he is not the top quarterback in this draft. He's the safest quarterback in this draft. He's got the big size, the big frame. He weighs a ton at 230. He's got a good arm. He's got a very, very, very plus arm in the collegiate ranks for a professional quarterback. He's got an above average arm, but not a great arm. Not a number 3 pick arm in the first round, a la Dan Marino, John Elway, one of those guys. When you talk about the all-time great quarterbacks in the modern era. All right, at number 4, you got the Buffalo Bills sliding up, trading with the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns move from 4 to 9, and they pick up Buffalo's number 1 pick in the 2015 draft, plus the number 4 selection, 4th round in the 2015 draft. So the Browns slide down 5 spots. The Bills go up 5 spots to select not Johnny Manziel, but Sammy Watkins. Again, the consensus number 1 wide receiver in this draft out of Clemson. Sammy Watkins is a beast. He's got the size, he's got the speed, and he is a very competitive football player. That's one thing that the scouts are very impressed with, that they think separates this guy. He is an intense football player at a diva position. This is a guy who's a grinder, a battler, a guy that doesn't mind fighting for the football, doesn't mind fighting off blocks, doesn't mind fighting off very physical cornerbacks who are trying to deprive him and knock him off his route. Sammy Watkins, again, a freshman phenom, 82 catches, 18 touchdowns, got into the Heisman Trophy mix. Difficulty with an ankle and off field issues as a sophomore, then came back as a junior and lit it up to get himself in this position. So Buffalo trades up with Cleveland to get Sammy Watkins at number 4. Okay, Oakland Raiders, Khalil Mack. They go with the raw player out of Buffalo, the outside linebacker who can really come off the edge. His most notable tape from this past season against the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes will land 4 of these players, maybe not drafted players, but they will be in NFL camps this year. And Khalil Mack lined up at different positions and took advantage of different offensive linemen for Ohio State this past season. It was the opener in 2013. Buffalo at Ohio State. Khalil Mack, the exceptional talent again out of Buffalo, goes to Oakland as the Raiders pass on Taylor Lewan and Mike Evans, 2 guys that were projected to be interests of the Oakland Raiders. Okay, number 6, the Atlanta Falcons go with what again was slotted to be the guy that they really need to protect Matt Ryan. They've got an aging and beat-up offensive line. They go with Jake Matthews out of Texas A&M, the second consecutive year that a Texas A&M offensive lineman has been selected in the top 10. So Jake Matthews is not only an exceptional football player and a great left tackle potentially in the NFL, but he's played all over the place along the offensive line. He's played guard, then he moved to right tackle, moved to left tackle, and now on to the NFL. So it's been 3 consecutive offensive linemen for Texas A&M that have moved from the guard position to right tackle to left tackle and now onto the NFL as a first-round pick. Jake Matthews, a 4-year starter at Texas A&M, now to the Atlanta Falcons. Then Tampa Bay at number 7 goes with another Aggie and Mike Evans, the wide receiver, a guy that I have really trumpeted the entire season and into the offseason. Not a fast player. He gets some knock for the route running skills or lack thereof, but he fights for the football, high points the football. He's a big physical receiver who's fast enough. He outfights defenders for the football. He knows how to use his body positioning to win those battles for the football. Tampa Bay goes with Mike Evans out of Texas A&M at number 7. Okay, Cleveland, remember they dropped from 4 to 9. Well, the Browns made another trade to move up 1 spot. They traded Minnesota, their 5th rounder this season, to move up the 1 spot and get into the 8th position, supposedly to take one Johnny Manziel, but the Cleveland Browns instead go with a cornerback out of Oklahoma State, Justin Gilbert. It's been argued whether Gilbert or Darqueze Dennard out of Michigan State were the top corners. The Browns certainly thought it was Justin Gilbert because they traded away the 145th pick, presumably the 145th best player in this draft, a deep draft, to move up just 1 spot to get Justin Gilbert and deprive the Minnesota Vikings. So the only reason the Browns would make this trade is if they actually thought that the Minnesota Vikings were going to draft Justin Gilbert. Okay, for Minnesota, they go to what could be a reach. Anthony Barr, projected by most to be in that 15 to 25 range, goes all the way up to number 9 to Minnesota. The Vikings selecting Anthony Barr, the outside linebacker out of UCLA, who can really come off the edge and rush the passer. A dynamic talent, but a bit raw. Barr goes to Minnesota. At number 10, Eric Ebron, the best tight end by far in this draft. He is the consensus number 1 guy, the only anything close to a first-round selection out of the tight end position out of North Carolina to the Detroit Lions. The Lions, we think of the Lions having weapons all over the place. Well, after Calvin Johnson in the passing game, not so much in recent years. Yes, they've got Reggie Bush and they've got Brandon Pettigrew, but they pick up Eric Ebron at tight end due to the Detroit Lions. And then we'll break out of the top 10, and the Big Ten finally gets into the mix with Taylor Lewan, the big left tackle out of Tennessee. Lewan's had off-field issues, but he has all the makings technically and physically of a great left tackle. And again, we've seen it in recent years. The left tackle position has been loaded coming into the NFL ranks in the first round of the NFL draft. So again, Clowney, Robinson, Bortles, Watkins, Mack, Matthews, Evans, Gilbert, Barr, and Ebron, and Lewan. And of course, Mark Rogers TV, we focus on the college football aspect of things. And again, the SEC showing its strength with Clowney and Robinson, the top 2 picks. Then you drop down to 6 and 7 with the 2 Aggies and Matthews and Evans. And then that's where we finish off with 4 of the top 7 players in the NFL draft coming out of the SEC. We'll be back with more analysis through the rest of the first round right here on Mark Rogers TV.